Hello and welcome to the Extended Greg YouTube channel. I'm Greg and today we're going to be building an audio recorder using a Raspberry Pi 4 and Alpine Linux. It's a lot of fun and should be something really useful if you have a podcast or even if you just want to try out a project on a Raspberry Pi. So we're going to be doing this from the ground up, so let's just get right into it. Okay, so here's what we have. This is going to be our audio card today. It's just a Behringer little 12-channel, the QX1202 USB audio console. So that's what I'm going to use as just an audio interface. It's just going to plug in USB into the Raspberry Pi. And speaking of which, here's the Raspberry Pi that we're going to use. It happens to be the 8 gig variant, just because we're not actually going to be including any separate storage for this. We're just going to be using pretty much whatever's on board, and because of Alpine Linux running from RAM, it's going to allocate half of that as its virtual hard drive. So just to show you, it is just a run-of-the-mill, nothing special about it. We're just going to be using USB for everything. So we're going to be doing pretty much everything from the ground up, including just creating our USB, or I should say our SD card, in order to actually boot off of it. So let's go ahead, and first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Alpine Linux's website, and we're just going to download the variant that we need. So we scroll down here, and we have our Raspberry Pi variant. And we have a few options. One of them is AArch64, ARM-HF, or ARM-v7. In this particular case, we're just going to do AArch64. It's a 64-bit version, and really there's no reason these days not to just use it. ARM-v7 would be our other option if we wanted to run it on the actual Pi 4. But ARM-HF is really only for the first generation of Pi, so it's not applicable in this case. Now, there's two installers here. One of them is the tar.gz, the other one is image.gz. We're going to choose the tar.gz because we're just going to extract it to the actual drive itself. And let's go ahead and do it. I have an older version already there, but we're going to just open it with WinRAR, and we're just going to click the two dots on the top, go to extract, and I've already pre-named it audio record, so that way I can easily find it. And we're just going to extract it there. And really, that's all you have to do for the Alpine Linux for Raspberry Pi. If it was a regular PC like x86, 64-bit build, you would have to actually use like a program like Rufus or some kind of imaging software in order to actually get it onto a USB thumb drive. But, that's one of the nice things, is it's still a pretty easy install at that point. Alright, so we finished extracting. Go in here, I'm just going to refresh it really quick. And there we go. There's all of our files. Now, one thing I'm not sure that we have to add or not, we're going to see, is pretty much if we have to add a command to a user cfg.txt file, but we're going to cross that bridge when we come to it. A lot of today is just going to be kind of seeing how it goes. I'm just developing this on the fly as we do it here, so it should be a lot of fun. So, let's go ahead and inject this. Alright. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it in here and get this all connected up. And in this case, I have a KVM, so I have a whole bunch of mess of cables that I got to connect. So let me go ahead and get that going, and then we'll be set to go. And this is one of those nice things where, because it's either Raspberry Pi 4 or Raspberry Pi 5, both require the adapter. So let me actually make sure I have one of those handy. Let's see. This is the part of the video and the stream when it becomes radio. plug it in over here instead. Okay. All right, so now that has power. So let's go ahead and see exactly what it's going to do here. And the label's going to be wrong, I'm telling you right now. Did we get it? Oh, I'm on the wrong view. Yeah, and it says Raspberry Pi 5. Let's fix that. Boom, boom, boom. Now it's correct. Okay, so now that we're logged in to our Raspberry Pi 4 on the image that we just applied there, let's go ahead and actually get this configured. So let me switch over my mouse and keyboard, and now we can actually go ahead and log in with root. Root is the default login, and pretty much there's no password at this point, but we're about to set one up using Setup Alpine. It's going to ask us to choose our key map. In this case, it's going to be US and US again. And it wants us to set a host name. So let's give it a host name. We'll call it audio record or audio REC. Now we want to actually initialize our Ethernet so we can download packages, things like that. So Ethernet 0 is going to be the hardwired Ethernet on it, and we're going to use DHCP as well. Those are the default options. Then we're going to choose done, because we don't want to set up wireless LAN, because realistically I only have one network that it's connecting to. So it just sent it out, and we do see that it was assigned 192.168.35.105. So we're going to remember that for in a second, so that way we can actually connect to it through SSH. And that'll let us do everything from the same machine and pretty much use it as if it was headless. I am planning on using this without a monitor and keyboard attached to it directly, so any administration that I do would be over SSH. So let's keep configuring. It's asking us for a password. I'm going to type in a very secure password. And I'm going to type it in again. Now, it's going to prompt us for our time zone, and of course the time zone is just so it can show us the local time. Otherwise, it's going to show it to us in UTC, which is potentially hours off from our time. So I'm going to use, let's see, I'll use US Eastern. And it does have some options there where you could go digging into the folders, but I know that's what I want. And then we're going to set up our NTP, which is what's going to synchronize the time. We are going to use timestamps in order to date the files, just to make everything easier. So we're going to use Crony for that. Now we need to set up our APK mirror. So we're going to first enable community repositories by hitting C. And then we're going to use the first mirror, which happens to be the official mirror. So we're just going to use option 1, which happens to be the default. We do not want to set up another user, okay? If you may want to, but in this particular case, we'd have to go in and edit another file in order to get SSH access. Or we'd have to elevate our privileges every time. So we're going to do no. We're going to do OpenSSH as our server. And here where it says allow root SSH login, if you do create a user, it will take you through those steps, but it won't prompt you for this here. It will leave it as no, so you can't log in as root. In this case, we want to. So I'm just going to do yes. If we did have, with prohibit password, you can use an SSH key instead of a password to log in, which is quite a bit more secure. But in this particular case, we're not going to go through that trouble. So now it's generating the keys, and now it's asking, do we want to do a disk install? No, we don't. We want to actually still have it running from RAM. Where do we want to store our configs? The MMC BLK0P1 is the SD card, so we're going to use that as well. And for the cache directory, we're going to use that default as well. So let's do update, or APK update. Perfect. And we're going to do LBU commit-d. And that saves our initial config. So now we can actually switch back over to the computer and try and log into it. It was So the actual address of the Raspberry Pi that we just saw was 192.168.35.103. I think that's right. Let's find out. Survey says... I don't think that was it. Let's go back over to it and check. So we're going to do ifconfig 105. I was close. And actually, I just kind of ran through that really fast. I'll just show you this really quick. So specifically, it shows it right here, and that's inet address. So for ETH0. So that's where I got that from. So just so it's clear what I'm actually looking at and what is going on with this. So now we can actually close. Let's start a new session. And we'll do 192.168.35.105, which is what it said. All right, we're going to accept this because we may need to connect multiple times and we don't want to be prompted every time. And now we're going to log in. So we'll do root and I will type in my very secure password. Now we're in. Perfect. So the first thing we actually want to do is we want to install Alsa utils. And actually, let me get the console hooked up here really quick, just so that way, as we're going through this, we can just see it right off the bat. Actually, I gotta plug in the USB. Okay. So now that that's all connected, we can minimize this, make this full screen, and now let's go ahead and, well, install Alsa utils. So we'll do apk add Alsa utils. And what this is it's going to install a few things like a record. And a record is what we're actually going to be using in order to be able to record the audio. We're not going to be doing that from the ground up because there's plenty of utilities available to do it. If we didn't want to use a record, we could use FFmpeg, we can use VLC. You know, there's a lot of them that you can use to be able to do this. But a record is really lightweight. It has enough features, and we'll go through a few of those as we pick out what we actually want. And, you know, we'll go from there. But we can actually do a record -L, and we can see our audio devices. And right now, I do see USB audio codec, which is actually showing up, and we can check that by disconnecting the USB cable here, running the same command again, and seeing if it doesn't show up. Perfect. So without it connected, it discards all samples. In other words, it doesn't support audio without it. So, and we also didn't have to do the, we didn't have to enable the onboard audio on the Pi, which actually makes things easier because then there's not going to be anything to conflict. It's always going to be one audio card present. So we can actually just use the default audio device in order to be able to use this. And we're not going to be playing anything out. We're just going to be using it to record, so that's perfectly fine as well. All right, so let's go ahead and create a service. And we're not going to do it directly on the actual SSH console, but we are going to use SSH to reference what we actually need to do. So like, for example, if we do a record -- help, you see how it just scrolls off the page and gets really annoying to be able to try and deal with this on the terminal directly. Because otherwise we would have to use a program like less or more or any of those other ones that actually allow you to scroll back through your console output history. We can just use the scroll bar here and the mouse wheel. So I think it does make things a lot easier, as well as copy and paste. So going through this, let's take a quick look. We want to include things like format. We want to include things like rate. Define the number of channels, which is going to be 2 in this case. We need to define what our device is. Well, we may not need to. There's only one device, so it may actually just be able to do it. But if we had multiple devices, we would definitely need to do it. And let's see, scrolling down, whether we want it to be interactive, things like that. So, cool. And it gives a few examples down here. Perfect. So, we're starting from a blank page, so we need to actually define 2 things in order to create a service. One is the running process, right? So we're going to define that first. So I'll actually do this really quick. So /bin/ash, and that's what we're going to use. We do what is called a shebang, which is a hashtag and an exclamation point, followed by the path to the actual interpreter that we're using. So this is just going to be it's like bash, but ash for Alpine. But we'll add a few comments right here at the top, but we're going to include 2 things. So in order to create the service, we're going to use our actual init file, or init.d file, and then our executable. And that's going to be this. All right, so pretty much we're just going to be putting the command in here. And we can just start there. We can put it inside of while loops. We can do things to make sure that it actually continues to run, or splits files, things like that, based on the amount of time that we actually want it to record. In this case, we want it to run just continuously forever, one time when it's started. So we're just going to use the command straight. So let's go back and take a look at what flags that we need in order to actually get this up and going. So we listed the number of devices, things like that. I don't think we need to define it, so let's skip that for now. We'll revisit it if we have to. And then we have number of channels. In this case, it's going to be 2 channels. So let's go ahead and define that. So we'll do -C2. And then our format. So here it does say what our sample formats are. And we can do quite a few things. I don't know what's actually supported in this. So I want to see if we can do S32LE. We're going to see if this works, but let's just try it. Right, and that was using -F and the format. And says it's case insensitive, so that's good. Right, because that's 32-bit floating point little endian. So it pretty much does the small byte and then the big byte. In that order, at least, smallest to biggest. All right, next, let's actually see our sample rate. In this case, I want it to be 48,000 just to make sure that it's the highest quality possible. And that was -S. Yeah, -S. Oh no, -R. Sorry. There we go. That's why we check. Alright, so -R. And going through, so it has interrupt after number of seconds. So if we did want to make it so it recorded and cycled over every few seconds, we could do that, but we're going to leave that out. It's just going to, as long as the service is running, it's going to continue recording. And then it has non-blocking mode, which means it will spawn it to the background. In this case, we don't want to do that. We just want to keep it inside of the actual service. And then period of time, so buffer duration, things like that. We're going to skip all of that. It's not required to be defined. It's just if you want to fine tune it to a particular objective at a particular performance level, you could do that. But in this case, it should be fine with the defaults. And start delay, stop delay. Verbose is whether you want it to be very... If you want it to print a lot of things to the screen, we're not going to do that. One of the nice things is VU meter type. So we should be able to actually enable this VU meter. It's a capital V, and we could put mono or stereo. So let's do V stereo. And then interactive operation, which would allow us to do pretty much entering keys in order to actually change the behavior as it goes. And then the rest of this is all, you know, doesn't really matter to us. And if we go back up to the top, it's option and then file. So we do need to define a file here. And remember how we set the date and made sure that was all correct. We're actually going to have it automatically fill that here. So we're going to do date plus %, and we're going to start pretty much in reverse order. So we're going to do it from the biggest value to the smallest, so that way it sorts appropriately. So we're going to do year, %, month, dash %day, underscore, %hour, capital H should be 24-hour clock, dot minute, and that's small m, and I think it's a lowercase s. Actually, this may be I. Well, we're not sure, so let's go ahead and check. So instead of just putting it in here, let's actually just go to the console, because again, because this is Ash, we could just actually run all of these commands. And there we see this is actually our output. So we see it is not correct, right? So what we have is for the year is right. The capital M looks like minutes. And then we get a different output. You know, we get the date output here with the slashes, which we don't want. And then we do underscore 01, and then the dot, and pretty much that's it. So it is 1 o'clock, but it's not printing anything after that. So I think it doesn't recognize %i and is just exiting. So let's correct that. So we will do lowercase m over here, capital M over here, and let's do capital S. And oh, we didn't fix D, which I believe is lowercase. So there we go. So we got 20, 24, 05, 20, 01, 26, which it is, that was the 26 minute, and we're not getting seconds, so maybe that was correct to begin with. Oh, I put $, excuse me. Perfect. And then let's put our time zone. Right? That way we know what time it actually is referencing. So that's perfect. So now that we've proven what our actual command is, let's go back to our script over here, paste that in, and then we can put .wave. Now, it doesn't have a full path, so obviously it won't know explicitly where to save it. But where are we going to save it? So one of the nice places to save it if you want it to disappear is, well, pretty much anywhere outside of the etc folder. You could save it to your home folder, or you could save it to the temp folder. In this particular case, we don't want it to save as part of any of our config saves or anything else like that, because it would potentially fill up the drive. So we want it to be able to erase on reboot. So we're going to put it inside of the temp folder. So if we ls/temp, we see nothing's in there. We can just put it in there directly, and I think it'll be fine. Now, granted, we may want to use that for other things, so if we're going to share this as like a shared drive, we may want to actually put a subfolder. So maybe we do that. Let's see. So we'll do /temp, and we put another slash, and then we can put the file. But let's actually put a subfolder, and we'll call it recordings. But if we're going to define that we want to put it inside of there, let's make sure that that directory exists, otherwise it's not going to have a place to save it. So let's make it conditional. So we'll do if statement, open bracket, square bracket, and we're going to do -e, which means if it exists, and what do we want to exist? We want temp recordings. Okay, so if that exists, and we don't need that trailing slash, we'll close that square bracket. Then we want it to make the directory /temp recordings. And we're just doing this inline, so we do have to add a semicolon, and then we can put phi to close out the if statement. So if the directory doesn't exist, make it. And then it can proceed on and launch a record. And then once a record finishes, we want to make sure that we exit successfully. So we're going to put exit 0, just so that way we have a 0 status code coming out of it. So let's go ahead and save this. Oh, and I didn't pre-navigate. That's okay. Let's see. I think that was the wrong folder I just selected. Is it going to freeze? Let's see. Yeah, it was. Okay. So we're going to save it over here. We have to go up to all types because we don't necessarily want to include an extension with this. And if you do all types, you can define it without an extension. Otherwise, it will forcibly put .txt at the end of it. Just a Notepad++ thing. So let's call this audio rec, right, for audio record. And let's save it. There we go. And because we put this statement up here, the Notepad++ actually goes through and does syntax highlighting based on what language that we're using. So it makes things a lot easier to be able to kind of go through and debug and make sure that what we think is supposed to be happening is happening. So now we can actually go in and make our service file, right, in order to launch this. Now, I don't want to make it from scratch because there's no reason to. So let's search Alpine Linux service example. And we're going to go to Alpine Linux's wiki, and they have a nice little tutorial on writing init scripts. So it talks about openrc, which is actually what's running init scripts. But if we scroll down, we see some very simple ones, and we see some very basic ones. Some very basic ones and some very advanced ones. So, for example, this basic example here is pretty sufficient for what we're looking for. This one does use the start-stop daemon, things like that, so it actually checks it that it's running and makes sure that you don't start it twice accidentally. And it says it needs network. In our case, we don't really need that. And then it talks about a few other things, and then it's all a to-do statement, so. So we're going to go ahead and copy this file right here and paste it in, and we're going to start with that. So here, when it says RC service name, what it's talking about is the name of the file itself. So whatever we name it, it's going to say that's the name of it. And then based on that, it's also going to say that's where its config file lives, you know, a lot of things based on that. But we do have to define a few things. So for our user, we are going to run it as root, just because that's our only user in this particular case. The command we're going to run, because here it says user bin my daemon, we already know that it's going to be audio record. So we're going to have it run that. Pretty much we can leave all the rest of this the same. We don't really need network, but I'm just going to leave it as vanilla right now. And we save that as well. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to create another folder, because I like to put it inside of a folder called root, which I treat as like the root of the drive when I'm programming. And then I will build whatever files I need to copy at their location in other folders. That way, if I'm testing it or moving it around, it's a lot easier for it to just copy in correctly. So we're inside the etc folder, and then we're going to be init.d folder, which is what OpenRC is going to use for this. And we're going to call this audio rec as well. Again, we have to choose all types, otherwise it will add an extension, and we don't want that. So we have two files named audio rec. So if we go there, let's see if we can get there quick. Maybe. Oh, there it is. So we have our other file, which we didn't know where to put it, but we do know we need to put it inside. Meh. I have a share on there that's on a machine that's turned off. So anyway, so bin, and then that's inside of user. I'm doing this in the backwards order, but USR, and then we'll drag the bin file in there. All right, so we have our two files that we need in order to create the service. So let's actually open up FileZilla in this particular case. So we're going to log in. And I remembered the IP address that time. All right, and we're going to go in user. Let's see. I could just drag it from here, but we're right here. And here's the nice thing. So right now I'm in the root folder, right? So it says remote site with a slash right here. You can barely see that right here. So that's how we know that we're there. So what I can do with the folders that I have on my machine, I can literally just drag them anywhere and it will automatically put them in that relative position on the target drive. So now if we go into /user/bin and we scroll down, we named it audio rec and it's right here. So it makes it a lot easier to upload a whole bunch of files all at once. So that way we're not having to go in and remember where to put things. So just my methodology and kind of the reasoning behind it. So now that we've uploaded everything, we need to assign certain permissions and make sure that we add it as part of LBU. So first thing, we need to assign executable permissions, because both of those files were just read, write, you know, that's about it. But they're not going to be able to run. So we're going to do chmod, and we're going to do +x to add that executable permission. So we're going to do /user/bin audio rec. And then we're going to do the same thing for our init file. So we're going to do chmod +x /etc/init.d audio rec. Now let's add it to LBU so we don't forget, and if we restart the machine, it doesn't get deleted. So we'll do LBU add /user/bin audio rec. We have to do the full path even if we're CD'd into there, by the way, for LBU. Then LBU add /etc/init.d once again. So let's go ahead and save it. Excellent. But before we actually add it to start automatically with the system or anything else like that, we need to test it. Let's make sure that it actually works. So since we have it inside of a bin folder, which is already part of our path, and specifically when I'm saying path, we can see that user bin is listed right here. So it will automatically assume that anything with executable permission inside of that folder is pretty much something you want to be able to run. So it will give you the quick access by just saying the name of the executable that you want. All right, and it says no such directory. We added a handler for that. What happened? Let's see. What went wrong? We moved it. Let's go ahead and reopen it. So what I have here is a logical error in the if statement. So if it does exist, then make it doesn't make any sense. If it does not exist, so that I needed to put the exclamation point here. All right, no harm, no foul. So now let's go back, and I'm just going to upload it again. Right, let's click back on there. Just drag the whole folder again. We are going to overwrite it. And now when we run it, we see that it is in fact going. I don't know that I have... Let's see. Oh, and this may not have a tone generator either. That's not nearly as fun. Oh. Yeah, and I wasn't going to plug a mic into here either. Actually, I could plug this in so it just feeds back ridiculously. That might be the way to go. Should we do it? Well, either way, we see that it's recording, so we don't have issues with our formats, we don't have issues with our channel mapping, anything else like that. We do see that it is showing the plus or minus there. I wish I had an XLR cable handy. I mean, honestly, I was thinking about it and I'm like, no, I shouldn't need it. It has a tone generator. Oh well. So, I'm thinking about it. Oh, that's an option. Let's do it. So what I have here are some fun things. There we go. So it's just an 1/8 inch cable going to some 1/4 inch cables that I can actually plug in here. So let's try it. And then it's gonna present the music that we have, but we'll see the view meters at least bouncing around. Right, not too bad. So we're getting real-time view meters based on it. We do see that it is working. You know, it's able to do everything. It's not getting my mic, by the way. That's why it's just reacting to the music. So it's kind of doing its thing there. It tells you when it's clipping. I can't complain about that. But, of course, this is only part of the equation. But let's get to that in a second. Let's actually set it up so test it as a service and make sure that it's actually outputting a file and just check it. Right, so I just did Control-C, which aborted. We see it aborted by signal interrupt. Whoop. Oh, there's dirt. Right, so aborted by signal interrupt, which means that it ended the file, but it should have ended it gracefully. And to be honest with you, WAV files are very simple. It's just recording the samples directly out, going to the file pretty much. So it's uncompressed. But if we ls into temp, right, we see our recordings are there, or at least our folder. If we ls into there, we see our wave. And if we do ls-la, which is list and then all, so it tells us everything about it. And let's actually do just LH instead, because we don't need those other folders. We see it's 75 meg, right? If we do df-h, which will show us our available hard disk space, we can see we're only using 3%, right? So we have 3.7 gigs available. We're using 3%. So we can actually record for quite a while into RAM, and it's not going to be an issue. So here's kind of where we get into where we need to figure out exactly what we're going to do with this. So I know that we need to make a watcher service. Okay, in order to make it start and stop, we need to make it so it's actually watching for some kind of behavior to be able to happen, to be able to start it and to stop it. So something I was thinking was, let's just set up a simple web server to be able to pretty much take in a command and then be able to act on it. And because of the way that permissions are set up, you can't actually have a web browser action, you know, like you can't have a form submission in particular trigger any kind of service change on the host machine. It's bad practice, but it's also not permissible based on user permissions. You can kind of make it happen, but it's not a good idea. So what I want to do is I want to have a controlled value that's placed somewhere that is checked by a service with the appropriate permissions, and that will start and stop the service. So let's take a look. So back over here, we're pretty much done with this. So let's take a look at what our options are. Excuse me. Let's see what the AI says. Light HTTPD. That sounds good to me. I haven't used it recently. It's a lot lighter weight than an Nginx or Nginx or Apache even. And we're not going to have to run anything too crazy on this. So let's see. Although we may want to run PHP or some kind of other programming language for dynamic things. Let's see. Let's look at it and then we'll make our decision. So pretty much it wants us to run light HTTPD and then do PHP as like a CGI. This is very old, I can tell, because it's PHP 5. We're up to PHP 8 now. But it may still actually be accurate. So let's take a look and see if we have those packages available. So we'll do, I'll clear the screen really quick. So we'll do APK search. And let's do light HTTPD. Or technically it's light TPD, but... And we do see it is available. We see it also as OpenRC, so it can run automatically. So let's go ahead and add that. And we're just going to do the base package, and it should install everything else automatically. And it may, yeah, it did install OpenRC right here. So we're good. So it should automatically start if we tell it to. So we'll save that out. Right, we're still not very big. We're only using 43 meg for packages. So I think that's totally acceptable. And then the other thing we want to add was the CGI version of PHP. And it does have it. I happen to know the name of that package already, so. PHP 8.3 is the version, so it's 8.3, and then CGI. Perfect. So since this is saying things anyway, I'm curious if that actually works. Let's try it. Okay. Let's actually search more specifically. Right, again, it brings us to the wiki. So we have to do FCGI directly. Right. We'll install PHP 8.3 directly as well. And what else did it want? And we already did 8.3 CGI. So let's try it. Not much to add. Alright, then we scroll down. So it says inside of the config file, we need to add include mods fastcgi.conf. It doesn't have an automatic mod administration tool like Ubuntu does, but that's totally fine. This isn't heavy lifting. So we hit enter, and we're specifically looking for include. We need to uncomment this line. That's assuming it exists. Right? Perfect. PHP fast CGI support. That's about as easy as it gets right there. We could also do FPM if we wanted to, but fast CGI is going to be more than enough. We don't need that kind of performance in this particular case. So we're going to save that out, and we'll just save as we go, just because it's good practice. All right, then we need to edit mod fast CGI and change this to include the version number. In our case, it's going to be 8.3, just because that's the version that we installed. We are going to check and make sure that this actually exists. We will save that out. And we're just going to check and make sure it exists with LS. And it does. So it should be fine. Then we just need to start the service and add it as the default to start on boot. And I could type this, but meh. Excellent. So now it is up and running. So if we actually go to that website, we do see it is running. I mean, granted, there's no files. So, you know, take that for what it is. But it is available to run. So let's actually go into our config and see where it expects us to actually store everything. So it says var www localhost. So that's where it's expecting all of our files to go. And I did not need to Control-C that, but all right. So let's create this directory. So we're going to do, actually, let's check and see if it exists. Okay, it does exist. And then there's htdocs within it. And that's empty. All right, and let's actually add a file to it. So let's do vi index.html. Just for, actually, let's do .php. Okay, and I'm just going to do so that's just gonna put the date on the screen. So let's see what we get now. And there we go. We see it is in UTC time, but we don't really care. And if we keep refreshing the page, we see it keeps incrementing along with it. So we just made a PHP capable web server. Excellent. So let's actually get that going and ready to go. So we know what our path is. So it's etc, well, I said that. etc, no, var www localhost htdocs. So let's add that right in. And then in here, we'll put our actual files to be able to control it. So let's create a file. We're just going to do pretty much the same thing that we were just doing, but let's make it actually do something. And this is just going to be our file to start and stop the recorder and show us status potentially. But let's at least start with basic control. So let's do random capitalizations, apparently. No, just kidding. So we're going to make it so if it's running, it's going to say stop. If it isn't running, we're going to say start. Now, one of the nice things is we can actually read the status of a particular service while it's without having the privileges to be able to execute it. So we could do service audio rec status, and right now it says stopped. If we were to start it, it's failed to start. Why did it fail to start? Oh, we have a command line issue. Oh, that's actually inside of our service file. Let's correct that really quick. I missed something here. So over here in our service, where it says stop daemon args, this is not a real thing. So we do need to delete this. And something else is we can actually, instead of putting background, we can put foreground here. And that might be interesting if we're not going to start it up as part of a startup service. So maybe we play with that. Right, so now that we actually saved that, we do need to upload it again before we save it on here. And let's go ahead and just save this really quick. And we're going to call it index.php, just like we did with the other one. And pretty much what we're going to do is let's just make it an easy button. So first thing we got to do is check and see if we have a request pending. So we're going to do if is set underscore $ underscore request, and it's just going to be submit, which is going to be the name of our button. Right, then we'll do things. Otherwise, we will actually output the current status. So let's get that ready right here. So if shell exec, and we're gonna find out what command we're gonna put there in a second, equals started, and we're going to check started specifically so we can make sure that if it crashes out, it still goes back to being able to be started. So let's upload our current file set here. And actually, we do need to refresh this. We're going to tell it to always overwrite, otherwise it's going to be prompting us a lot. Now, we already have our index file. We need to actually make sure that we save that too. So we're going to do lbu add /var www localhost htdocs index.php. Perfect. So now we have that. Let's actually just try running our service again since we just uploaded it. Excellent. And if we actually do ls-lh and we do /temp recordings, whoops, I didn't have that. Well, I don't know why I didn't type that. Right, so right now we see it's 10 meg, 11. So it's about a megabyte a second. So you can do quite a few megabytes, you know. That's a couple hours of recording for the number of gigabytes that we have available. But we see that it is currently running, it is currently doing things. We do have audio feeding into it. And now we can stop it. Let's see, did it stop? All right. And it says it's still running, so that is an issue. So it looks like it is forking to the background. It is not exiting successfully. So we may need to do something about that. So we're just going to force it out, and that makes sure that it stops recording. All right. So it did stop recording, but we obviously want a nicer way to be able to exit it. But for now, what we can actually do, I believe there is a way to actually, just since we're in this mode of fixing and testing and making sure before we start trying to register it. We have this PID file here, which is supposed to exit, but that's actually just for the parent process, which is user bin audio record. We want to actually check and see what the PID process of a record is. So we're going to go to the man page, and so die.net is Linux, a great Linux command reference. And it's going to show us a lot of the same things that we got with the help, but it may include a few other things that we can check. So process ID file does exist here as well, and we may actually need to just go ahead . Well, let's see. So just thinking about it, I think we can actually just work around this. This is a bit of hackery, but we're we're just going to do that. And I don't know if we could do stop pre. Let's see. So we're looking through the manual, just seeing if there's any specific information that can help us here. And this is, we're just looking at what the available documentation is to be able to determine what we can actually do for this. Oh, that's not helpful at all. Let's see. So we can just put our own stop script. And maybe we should do that. So what we're going to do is, even though it doesn't like it, we're just going to have it stop everything manually. So we know it's going to be the only thing using the recording at the given time. So we are going to have it close the PID. Right, so it's going to kill that single process. And then, just to make sure, we're going to have it kill all A record, assuming I spell it correctly. And if it can't kill all A record, we're going to do or true, otherwise it will cause problems if it doesn't work. All right, and that's going to be our stop function. So, short and sweet. Not necessarily the most resilient, but that's okay. But let's go ahead and back into FileZilla. Just dump everything over. Perfect. So now when we go back over here, let's try and start and stop our service again. And make sure it does. Okay. So we see 02.10. Right, we do see it's running. And just since we're here, let's see what our current status is. Not A record, we want audio rec. And we see it is started with all lowercase. For some reason, I'm getting very laggy mouse performance here. So this is the command that we actually want to put in here for our check. So I am just going to add it really quick. But it's not going to equal started, by the way. So let's just put a note here and we'll revisit that. All right, it's had a little bit of time to go. Let's stop it and make sure it stops. Okay, it says it stopped. It says it's 28 megabytes. It still says it's 28 megabytes. Perfect. And we do ps-a or grep a record. We see nothing is there. So there's no other processes that are running with a record. So it did exit it successfully. It didn't say anything as it was exiting, but that doesn't really matter as long as it exits. So that works. So it's kind of doing a thing. So we can ignore this. Let's go back over here. Let's get this set up. So we need to actually check and make sure that the lowercase started is present inside of our script to be able to say that it is running or if it is not running. So let's look up a PHP reference. And we'll do string in string. So string contains is one way to do it. And it says haystack, which is going to be the thing with more characters than we're searching for, and then the needle, which are specifically what we're searching for. That's all it means. And when it says it has bool, that means that it's a true or false response. So string contains, and we're going to put that here, right? So the shell exec is going to be, the return of shell exec is going to be our needle, or our haystack, excuse me, and our needle is started. Then we're going to do two quotes, right? So we see this, we see the highlighting here. Then open curly braces, and we'll put our button to say stop. So let's just do, and actually we could put a form for everything because we know it's going to need a form. And the way I like to do this is I actually like to close out the PHP in order to do HTML. So we can actually even put it up here. Just get everything started. Okay, so now we're inside the body. We go down here, and we can say form. We're not going to give it an action, it's just going to submit to the local thing. And technically, actually, that's all we need. So we'll just have that. And then we'll have so the name is going to be action. The value is going to be stop. The text inside is also going to be stop. And then we need a submit button, but we'll do that in a second. So really, that's all we need. Then we'll reopen PHP. We need to do the second conditional for if it is started. So we'll do else. We're going to copy and paste the same thing. And let's do record. Right, and then here we can put our submit button. Or actually, we can do on-click on those. All right, so since we're going to put action, let's change this from submit to action. All right. And we're going to do type equals submit. And that will actually submit our form for us. So we don't need anything special, but it'll only show one button. And then we just have to do a /form. Then up here where we have the action, and actually I'm going to make this so it shows it either way, because realistically if we're starting it, doesn't mean that we don't want to see any output. So let's do this. But here we want to have it start and stop. So let's do if request action equals stop, we're going to make a file in the temp directory. And we're going to say file put contents, right? And then it just wants a file name and the data. So we're going to do /temp / record stop, and we're just going to put the current timestamp in seconds. All right, and not for any reason, but just so that way it has some kind of data in there. And actually, I believe that it could be you. I don't remember. It actually doesn't matter what's in there. So we're putting whatever that turns out to be. And then we close that, put a semicolon, and we go from there. And then we're going to do else if request action equals start or record and we'll do /temp record start. Again, this leaves a lot to be desired in terms of making sure things don't get clicked, things like that. So obviously we may want to have some more detailed kind of checking to make sure that it's going to do things. But we're just kind of going for the gross overview right now in terms of what the overall capability is. Because we can always enhance it later. All right. So now that we've gotten all this going, let's save that out. Let's upload it. Let's save it. All right, and now let's try running it. Now, granted, it's not going to show us what it's recording. Okay, so we can hit record, but we have nothing to actually do anything with it. But let's see if it actually made the file. Right? We do see it made the file. So let's do cat /temp record start. Right? And it's the number of seconds since 1970, which is good because that's what we want. So now what we need to do is actually make a watcher process. So in order to do that, we're going to create 2 more files. So one's going to be our watcher that actually goes through, loops every second or so, and checks to see if those files exist. And then we'll actually, do something with it. It'll start the process. So let's do shebang /bin/ash. And we'll call this the watcher service. So now let's see what we got. What can we do? So we're just going to have it in a while loop permanently. So while true, do, and we're just going to have it go see. So if a file exists, and this time if the file exists, /temp /record start, then we're going to have it delete that file. And then we're going to have it actually start the service. We'll do the same thing down here, and I'm not doing an else statement just because they could both exist, but I would want stop to obviously take precedence over start. Just so I want that to fire last. And then we want to sleep 1 second, just so that way we're not taking up all those CPU usage, just checking this. And we do done. And we do exit 0, just because it's never going to reach it because it's a permanent while loop. But that's, that's totally fine. So let's save this. This is going to be our service, so we're going to put that in the same bin folder. So we'll do user bin, and we're going to call this audio rec watcher. Right, no extensions, so we set it to all file types. And then pretty much we're going to copy this service file right here, because it seemed to work for us just fine before. Create a new file, paste that in. It's automatically going to do that, but we're going to add watcher to this. And actually command args doesn't actually mean anything either. In this case, we don't need this because obviously we're not running the service directly. We're just calling that one script, and that should exit normally because it's not spawning any other processes. So we're going to delete that stop function. Right, and this is already root initd. So let's actually get that going. We're going to name it the same thing. Audio rec watcher. Perfect. All right, so now we need to upload all of these, save them, and let's try running them. So I'm just going to refresh this just because we added a bunch more files. Even though they're inside the folders, they should automatically audit. Excellent. So now let's add these two files. So we'll do lbu add /user /bin /audio rec -watcher. We'll do lbu add /etc /initd audio rec watcher. And we'll do chmod to them both. And we'll do lbu commit -d. So first, before we register it as a startup service, let's go ahead and test it, make sure that it is working. So we'll do audio rec -watcher. So it did start audio rec, right? So we're just going to leave this up and we should see it stop it, right? So we refresh this page. So we do see it is running. So now we can hit stop. We do see that the status updated, and we see that it did stop. I am not sure what this error code is here, but it worked. So that's pretty cool, right? So we got the baseline of our functionality here. But we obviously have an issue because where are all of our files? That doesn't help us actually see any of them. So we want to do two things. We want to make it so we can download our files by searching them and being able to click on them, which is pretty easy to do. And then the other thing is we obviously want to make it so it does in fact download when we click on it. So we're going to just put that underneath this. So let's put a horizontal line there. And then we want to put in our download. So we'll do h2 and let's actually see what our options are. I think we can do either glob or we can just do a file search. So let's just do PHP list files and directory. Scander. Yeah, and Scander shouldn't include the dot files. So let's do, oh, that's perfect. And it can sort it ascending or descending. And because we're doing the date as the actual name, that actually makes it really easy. So it'll always appear at the bottom or the top, depending on how we want it to appear. So it's going to return an array. So let's copy that. Let's go down here. So we're going to do files equals scander. And then up here, not up here. We need to go to the other file. Here, there we go. And we want temp recordings. So all of the files in there are what we're going to actually look at. Put that in quotes, just because it is a path. And then we actually don't need to put anything else. So let's just do that because we want it to be ascending. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a for each loop. So we're going to do for each files as file. Now, we want this to kind of show up in some kind of semblance of an order. So what we could do is actually put this into an unordered list. Or we could do a table, we could do any number of things. Oh, excuse me. Little frog in my throat. Okay. So let's look up just because I don't remember off the top of my head because I don't do it that often. W3 schools looks great. So UL and then line. Perfect. So we're going to put our UL start over here. We will go after this, put our /UL here. And these are obviously all going to be links. So, but we can put so right here, and it's just going to kind of print it out all in one line, but that's okay. So we'll do line and /line. Whoop. And what we need to do is we need to actually put a link in here as well. So we'll do href equals something, and we'll make it open in a new tab. So we'll do target equals _ blank, just so that way we can download it easily. And then we'll do /a. And in the middle here, we are going to echo our file name. Right, so that's going to be our link. Now here, for href, let's see how we're actually going to provide our downloaded file. So we'll do php file download. And what it's going to be is pretty much this. That's all we need. So not a lot to it. All right, and we can keep it as part of our file if we want to, but we would have to do it before the HTML comes up. And that is an option. So let's do right. So if is set $ under request download, spelled correctly, hopefully. Then we're not going to do any of this other stuff. Okay. And I'll show you what we're going to do. So we're going to paste this here. And in order to get around processing the rest of the file so it doesn't corrupt everything, we're just going to do exit, and that will end the file if this is the case. So it'll only output this. So I'm not sure what this is trying to do. Oh, I see what it's trying to do. Okay. I don't like what it's saying here. We're going to tell it what the name is. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to check and make sure that the file exists. So we're going to do /temp /recordings / and then ._request download. So if the file exists, then we'll do things. Okay, so if it exists, we're going to serve it out with its own name. Perfect. Otherwise, we're going to say file not found. And then we'll exit. All right, so we don't care what this is. So let's tab this. If this file exists, we know it's a valid name, so that's going to be our file. Right? And the file that we're going to read back is this, the one that we just checked to make sure it exists. So we just put this here. So what our actual URL is going to be is index.php, but it's going to be $download equals and our file name. So let's go back down here and we're going to do $download equals and then our file name. And that should be it. And it's going to do one of those for each line, going all the way down. And that'll just be our list of files. And obviously when we reboot, it's going to automatically clear everything in there. So let's Control-C out of this. We can actually register this to start as a startup service. So before we do that, let's just upload our files and save it, and then we'll do that final stuff, and we should be actually done. We didn't have to add anything extra, so we don't have to do any additional LBU commands. So let's do rc update add, and we just do the name of the service, which is audiorec-watcher default. And then we're going to do the same thing for Light PD, but I think it's already there. Actually, we already added that. I do know that. So, at this point, we really should have everything set. So let's go ahead and try it. Will it show us the files? It's not going to be pretty. Perfect. Let's debug. What could have gone wrong? And I'm willing to bet I forgot some kind of syntax. Okay. Right here. Forgot a close parentheses. Let's upload it again, save it again, and try it again. Perfect. It is showing our dot files, so we could put conditionals to be able to handle that. But we see that it is in fact doing things. So let's go ahead and record a new file. Right? Is it recording? Oh, we didn't start it. We should start the service that watches for it. And I use that path, the /etc/init just because it has auto-completion. So, but it's the same as the service command. Cool. We see it is adding something. It still says record is no good. What's it doing? Oh, did we stop it? Let's see. Okay, so now it's doing a thing. That is perfect. So what I'm going to do... Let's stop it here. Right? We should see it actually stop. Perfect. So this bottom file should be the one that we want, and when we click it, it should download. There it is. So we save it, we see it's 10 meg, and when we click it, I'm going to turn off the music as we do this. We should be able to play it and hear it. And this is what it just recorded. So it's doing everything that we wanted it to do. It's letting us download the files, and pretty much it's working exactly the way it's supposed to. So, very exciting. So that's not too bad. So only 5 files in order to be able to get a fully functional audio recorder with web control, as well as the ability to download the files without having to do any kind of special protocols or anything else. So thanks for watching the video or stream today. If you like it, be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment down below. And if you know anybody who would like this kind of content, be sure to share it with them. I would appreciate it, and I hope they would appreciate it too. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And then hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we're getting extended. So until then, take care.